What's up, guys? It's Patricia from tarantulaheaven.com, and today we're going to talk about what is the difference between captive bred tarantulas and wild caught tarantulas. And if you're new to the channel, welcome to Tarantula Heaven. I put out videos every single Tuesday for Tarantula Tuesday. I cover tarantula facts, weird things about my tarantulas, weird other things I found out about tarantulas, funny things that my tarantulas do. So anything tarantula related, if you are into that, please subscribe, and I hope you love it. And I do apologize that Miss Spidey is in the back of our tank right now. I'm hoping that she moves to the front, but she was up here, but now she's hiding. So we'll see what she does during this video. I hope she will show herself for you. But anyway, so as if being a new tarantula owner or a want to be tarantula owner wasn't hard enough, like you didn't have enough things to memorize and learn about, you also need to know the difference between where people get their tarantulas from. And there are not only just hidden facts about tarantula keeping, but there are also major ethical concerns in the tarantula hobby that you should be aware of so that you don't make a bad or unethical purchase. So the two terms you need to know are wild caught and captive bred, and you should know the difference because knowing this difference could actually save your collection in the long run. So what's the difference? Well, a wild caught tarantula is exactly what it sounds like. It's a tarantula that was caught in the wild and was taken out of its natural habitat. A lot of times these spiders are imported or smuggled into different countries illegally without proper clearances or documentation. And unfortunately, if you buy a tarantula from a regular pet store like a Petco or a Monster Pet or things like that, more than likely you are going to end up with a wild-caught tarantula. Usually these major chain pet stores don't take much time or consideration to learn about where their tarantulas are coming from. So there's a high likelihood that you could end up with this kind of tarantula. And this was something that I had actually done because I got Spidey, my first tarantula, my G. rosea, from a Monster Pets many years ago, and this was before I knew anything about the captive bred versus wild caught thing. Believed that I was getting a captive bred tarantula, but hadn't actually gone that deep into the research or the hobby. So I believe that Spidey is more than likely a wild caught tarantula. And this was something that I really wish I had known so that I could have made a more ethical purchase. Of course, I do love her and I wouldn't trade her for the world, but looking back on my beginning journey as a tarantula keeper, I wish that I would have known a lot of things that I know now. So that's why I'm telling you. On the other hand, captive bred tarantulas are the exact opposite. These were tarantulas who were bred and raised in captivity, usually through several generational cycles of captive breeding. And so you can usually get these from a reputable tarantula breeder or seller or an exotic shop. And these guys will usually have captive bred tarantulas. They will be able to tell you anything about your tarantula, the species, the age, when was its last molt, when did it last eat. At least that's what my local tarantula shop, Ill Exotics, was able to tell me when I bought Blinky. So my second tarantula purchase, and currently my last one, I did go the ethical route. Luckily, Ill Exotics had opened up, and that's really the only local exotic store that I know of right now in Philadelphia. And they sell captive bred tarantulas. And I will say that buying captive bred was a much different experience than buying Spidey. One, I had gone to an exotic store that time, so I was able to get a lot of more information about how old or how far along Blinky was in their life, when did they last molt, when they last ate. So that was really wonderful. When I got Spidey and I went to a bigger pet store, mainstream pet store, couldn't really tell anything about Spidey. They didn't even know if she was a male or a female. So I think that's definitely one incentive of why you should go captive bred, just because you get better advice from the breeder or seller, but also just because it'll help you make like a feel-good purchase. I felt good when I purchased Blinky because I knew the difference between wild caught and captive bred, and I knew that I was doing something good for the tarantula hobby. So there are more considerations than just ethical concerns, I guess, to deciding what is better. To be quite frank, the tarantula hobby wouldn't even exist without wild-caught tarantulas being imported from their countries. However, captive bred tarantulas are thought to be and are generally safer, and they're more ethical. If you get a wild-caught tarantula and you've got another a big collection or other tarantulas, having a wild-caught tarantula that is coming from the wild could introduce diseases and parasites and make the rest of your collection very vulnerable to anything that spider might be bringing in from its former habitat. And not to say that this couldn't happen with a captive bred tarantulas, because some tarantulas do just get sick, and we do have very limited information about how this happens and how disease spreads with tarantulas and throughout collections, but generally this is a lot more rare with captive bred tarantulas because their environments have been far more controlled and monitored. So it doesn't mean that a wild-caught tarantula will definitely have a disease, but if you have a huge collection and you've put a lot of time and money into this, most of us don't want to take that chance. Unfortunately, it does become a challenge in the hobby because wild-caught tarantulas do tend to be cheaper, and there are certain species that are limited when you're talking about captive bred tarantulas. So the more exotic species of tarantulas can be kind of hard to find captive bred. Captive bred tarantulas also tend to be slings, so it's hard to find grown tarantulas in their captive bred form. I bought Blinky as a sling, and that's usually when they're purchased. So while wild-caught tarantulas are definitely responsible for the growth of the hobby, there are certainly ethical concerns, not only for the safety of tarantulas, but also ethical concerns as well. So a lot of these tarantulas come from protected areas of the world. By doing this, we could deplete that population, and eventually some species could become extinct. So when you are seeking out and purchasing a tarantula, these are all things to consider. Not only thinking about the short-term consequences of what getting a wild-caught tarantula might do to your collection, or certain risks that might come with that, but also thinking about the long term, like getting a wild-caught tarantula does have, or supporting taking wild-caught tarantulas out of their habitat and smuggling them into other countries does have a certain long-term effect that is negative on different parts of the world and different species. So those are things to consider. It's kind of a double-edged sword, like many things in this hobby. So I would actually love to know what you guys think. What is your take on the wild-caught versus captive bred? This is something that I was very new to when I first started my tarantula keeping journey, and I think that a lot of beginners kind of can miss if they're not looking for it. So that's why I wanted to put it out there. But please let me know your thoughts. I would love to continue this discussion in the comments, and thank you so much for watching if you made it to the end. Spidey is still back there, so that's that. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.